Y'all remember this lady, Kathy Griffin? She's the comedian that held up a depiction of Donald Trump's severed head. She's going around telling everybody that Donald Trump is going to put her in an internment camp and using it as a way to grift to try and encourage her fans. Not sure she has any fans, but trying to encourage people to buy tickets to her tour because she's going to be put in an internment camp. And before someone on the left says, oh, she's a comedian, she was making a joke, she literally says, quote, I'm not kidding, I'm not being paranoid, he's going to pick us off one by one. And honestly, even in spite of that, I think the craziest thing she's saying here is that she actually has fans that would be willing to buy tickets to her tour. That aside, she's telling people that she knows that Donald Trump has a list of people, that he's petty, and he's got a list of people that he's going to pick off one by one. There may be no better poster child for Trump derangement syndrome than Kathy Griffin.
Comedians from Hollywood are terrified of another Trump term. Just to name a few, you got Will Ferrell and Kathy Griffin. Although you'd have to think that the president-elect has more on his mind than comedians that really aren't even that funny anymore. And for Griffin, comedians who were probably never ever funny to begin with. And while I understand the concern, there are bigger fish to fry, because I'm also covering the possible pardons that Trump will provide once he's in office. And yes, this does include J6. Now, it's also bringing into light the possibility of jail time for the likes of Liz Cheney, which kind of makes you wonder why more of these government officials are leaving office right before Trump's back in power. One of them is Matthew Graves. Hey guys, I just want to thank y'all so much real quick for being here. Thank you for hitting the like button. Thank you so much for supporting the channel and subscribing. You guys are awesome. Let's jump in.
One of the swampiest DC creatures just announced that he's resigning because he's afraid when President Trump takes over that he's going to be held accountable. I'm talking about Matthew Graves. He is the U.S. attorney in Washington, D.C. He's an absolute dirtbag, communist, Marxist, and well, his wife matches his energy. He's a horrible person who's persecuted over 1,000 Americans because he didn't like their political beliefs, even though many of them were peaceful on January 6th. It didn't matter to him. He went after them because he didn't like them. This man, this evil man, denied the majority of them their constitutional rights, and he actually committed perjury during their trials. He's a horrible human being who probably should be on the first boat to Guantanamo Bay when we kick those rounds off.
So Graves is leaving office right before Trump is sworn back in. And as you guys heard, this guy made life hell for those who wanted to rally peacefully back in 2021. However, expectations are now pretty high, given that we've got a new president. Now, according to Bloomberg, President-elect Trump is expected to pardon over 1,000 individuals convicted for the involvement in January 2021 at the Capitol Hill. Now, many analysts are saying that it's justified given the pardon President Biden provided his own son, Hunter Biden. That and the numerous private citizens that he gave a Presidential Medal of Freedom to, although Trump's plan is already being criticized. One of those critics is Senator Adam Schiff.
In my interview with President-elect Trump, he said that he does plan to pardon those who attacked the Capitol, potentially even those who pleaded guilty of their crimes. You heard Leader Thune say that's ultimately a decision for the president to make. How do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, that day when we peacefully transfer power, historically peacefully transfer power, is a real solemn occasion, I think, for the whole country. But it has another meaning now that we had this terrible, violent attack 4 years ago. For those of us that were there in the Capitol, it's going to be, I think, quite an emotional experience to be back in that environment on that day. I invited Daniel Hodges, one of the Metropolitan Police officers who was being crushed in that revolving door, to remind people of what that day was really like, given all the revisionist history around it. But if the president goes forward with pardoning vast numbers of people involved in that violence, he will begin his new administration the way he ended his last administration, and that is by celebrating violence against our democracy.
Now, you got to wonder if they would ever criticize their own party members the same way, because you got President Joe Biden repeatedly saying that he won't get in the way of the Justice Department when it comes to Hunter Biden. But just weeks before he's set to leave the White House, he pardons him for more than a decade of possible crimes. But of course, we're just supposed to be focused on the mob of the J6 and how violent it was, right? This is how they want you to view all of this stuff. Even though the president-elect himself has said that there are people in jail who don't deserve to be in jail, and that he's going to look at this on his first day in office.
You promised to pardon those who attacked the Capitol on January 6th. Are you still vowing to follow through with that promise?
We're looking at it right now, most likely, yeah.
Well,
Those people have suffered long and hard. And there may be some exceptions to it. I have to look. But, if somebody was radical, crazy, there might be some people from Antifa there. I don't know, because those people seem to be in good shape. Whatever happened to Scaffold Man? You know who Scaffold Man was? He stood on a scaffold telling everybody to go and nothing happened to him. Whatever happened to Ray Epps? Now, I don't know anything about Ray Epps, but it was sort of strange the way he was talking. Where is he? What happened to him? Because the people that did very little, they arrested an old woman because I don't think she did anything. They don't even know what she did. These people have suffered. Their lives have been destroyed. And yet in Portland, where they burn down half the city, they burn it down all the time. It's like a, routine occurrence. They don't do anything. They attacked the courthouse, federal courthouse. They always say federal building. Okay. They destroyed the beautiful limestone exterior of the courthouse in Portland. They killed people in Portland. Seattle, people got killed in Seattle. Seattle, they took over a big chunk of the city. They took it over. They took the city away. Minneapolis, it looked like when they said this is a friendly protest, and yet over the poor slob from CNN, his shoulder, the entire city was burning down. It looked like World War II.
And this just shows us the hypocrisy when it comes to Trump. Mainstream media and Democrats are all for criticizing Trump and his alleged supporters while crimes are being done across the country. Crimes that have never led to prosecution. And here's the thing about the media that we have to understand. If it's targeted towards Trump, then it's all good. Kind of like how Kathy Griffin posed for photos with a severed head of Trump. Now, I'm not really sure why she is not behind bars for doing something like this, but it's pretty clear she got away with it. Because Trump has survived not one, but 2 assassination attempts from last year. So having a photo with just the head of a former president isn't a good look. But now she's going on air trying to say that she needs help. She's apparently warning her fans, not that she really has that many fans, but she's warning what few she has, that they need to watch her touring comedy show as soon as they can. The reason behind this urgency is Trump's second term, saying that it's possible that the president-elect places her in one of those internment camps. She also said this, "I'm on the enemies list." That's very obvious. He was very, very scared when I did a parody photo of him and a Halloween mask and a lot of ketchup. And he brings up my name every chance he gets. Now, I'm not sure about you guys, but I'm certain that we haven't heard the president-elect mention her name in like years at least, right? Now, she did warn other comedians that it's going to be a tough 4 years with President Trump in charge, suggesting that they can't joke around with him at all. Although it's safe to say that they didn't make that many jokes about Joe Biden or Kamala Harris throughout their 4-year term. Now, speaking of comedians, remember when Will Ferrell showed his full support for Kamala Harris?
This election is going to be one of the closest in history. Your vote will make the difference. That means you, Gary. Oh, blah, blah, blah. I'm just one person. No. Shut the up, Gary. Last time, only a few thousand votes kept Trump out of office. And this time, we will hold you personally responsible, Gary. Don't forget to vote, Gary.
And this wasn't a one-time deal. Will Ferrell also went out with Billy on the street to ask Kamala Harris supporters if they would ever have sex with a Trump supporter. I swear, guys, I'm not making this stuff up.
Hey guys, it's Billy. I am back on the street with the one and only Will Ferrell, and we are out here today to represent a very important voting demographic, loud white men for Kamala Harris. So you ready, Will? Ah! Miss, for $1, would you have sex with a Trump voter?
Absolutely not.
And it looks like Will Ferrell isn't taking Kamala Harris's loss very well. In fact, he was seen in his elf costume looking rather depressed.
Buddy the Elf is a huge Kings fan, but we've never, ever seen him like this. I stopped by just to check in on him. He's smoking a cigarette ringside. He's got a 5 o'clock shadow, looking a little bit disgruntled. Said it was a tough holiday season, you guys, and he's looking for a Kings win, but right now with this...
I mean, he's a little worn out. It's a busy season.
Now, if he's filming a sequel, it might be best to title it Elf 2, Finding Joy, because joy has completely left the building for these Hollywood elites, which goes to show that their influence over the masses is now gone. So Griffin was right when he said that there are going to be a few rough years for them, mainly because they've outgrown their use when it comes to propaganda. But what do you guys think about this?
Congresswoman, when you hear those remarks, what are your initial thoughts?
Again, we have someone who doesn't know what he's doing. And, this idea of, oh, you're illegal and then you go out and have a child. It's not quite that simple, especially when you have people that are doing things like seeking asylum and people that are saying, listen, I'm just trying to make sure that I can live a better life here in the United States, and I want to do everything that I can to become an American citizen or at least get some sort of legal status. And you have, Trump that goes out there, him and his minions, and they say things like, you know what, we're only going to get rid of the bad ones, right? And so people sit there and they're like, wait a minute, you're going to come to my job where I'm working and I may be paying into taxes or whatever, or my kids are at school. I think that there's going to be a rude awakening really on all sides.
We got a lot in store for you guys today. And as you saw, ghetto Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett is at it again. She's already criticizing President-elect Trump's borders are by saying that he's not qualified for the job. Is she serious? Now, many people would argue that she's the one who's not qualified to be in the House of Representatives right now. There's also this turmoil within the Democratic Party as former First Lady Michelle Obama got blasted online for sharing a weird holiday greeting. And with so little time until Trump is back in the White House, we're hearing of attacks to the U.S. Treasury. Now, it sure does feel like chaos is right around the corner. So let's go ahead and start with Representative Crockett and her less than stellar time within the Oversight Committee. And guys, thanks so much for hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. You guys are amazing. Appreciate that, guys. Let's jump in.
Have you ever heard them say if, since we've been sitting here for I don't know how long? Because honestly, if they would continue to say if or Hunter and we were playing a drinking game, I would be drunk by now.
Ms. Crockett.
I'm just curious, just to better understand your ruling. If someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body, that would not be engaging in personalities, correct?
A what now?
Chairman.
And it also sounds like you have to know something about math. My colleague brought that up as well. It sounds like you need to be at least somewhat decent at counting to be with the IRS. Yes. You'd agree? Okay.
I agree.
Now, you just can't make this stuff up, guys. And Crockett is calling out Tom Homan and saying that he's in way over his head with the border. She's arguing that someone has to explain to Trump in an elementary way that we don't go after our allies and start wars. But many people find that hypocritical given that the Ukraine-Russia war was started under President Joe Biden. And the same could be said for Israel and Hamas, also under Joe Biden. So here's the thing with Homan. Tom Homan, he fired back and he said that he doesn't even know who Representative Crockett is. She's nobody. And he doesn't care about what these people are saying because he's done his job for a long time. Going by his tenure, Tom Homan has a winning record when it comes to enforcing Trump's policies at the border.
A lot of people have wondered, how is this going to work? So how will it work?
Well, look, I think the president's been clear on the stage. As far as the deportation operation, we will prioritize public safety threats and national security threats because they pose the biggest danger to the United States. He's got three rails. So we'll do the deportation operation with the priorities I just talked to you out of the gate. That'd be the priorities. Second thing is secure that border. Lock that border down and catch and release and secure the border. The third rail is we got over 300,000 missing children. Over 500,000 children have been trafficked into the United States. This administration released them to unvetted sponsors, and they can't find 300,000 of them. And based on my 3.5 decades, some of these children are in forced labor. We already found some in forced labor. Some are in forced sex trafficking. Some are living with pedophiles. We need to save these children. That's going to be the third rail.
And while many Democrats don't trust them, they do have the support of border control. So here's the National Border Patrol Union President Paul Perez talking about it recently. Check this out.
So what I say is take President Trump and his incoming administration at their word. They're going to do the job of protecting Americans. And so it would be incumbent upon those sanctuary cities and jurisdictions to understand one thing: federal law supersedes state law. Any municipality, anybody that's going to get in the way is going to be dealt with. And so they need to take this incoming administration at its word, because they're going to have some of the best legal minds working within the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security. So it's not something that they're taking lightly. They're going to do the job.
And with that in mind, do you trust the new border czar Tom Homan to fix the problems created under the Biden-Harris administration? Now, let's talk about the failed presidential bid of Kamala Harris and how Michelle Obama's taking it. So the former First Lady went on Instagram to share a holiday greeting that was more salty than festive.
Happy holidays, everyone. I know it's been a difficult few months for so many of us, and that folks are feeling a little bit anxious and uncertain. But even during these tough times, there are plenty of reasons to stay hopeful.
But here's the problem, guys. The majority of the country is fired up about Trump's second term. In fact, a lot of them were in her comment section. So here's one response. Michelle, America is excited about what's to come. A new horizon and prosperity for the nation. 2025 through 2029. No anxiety here. Another one says, a difficult few years from the damage the Biden administration has caused. Things have never looked better since Trump won the election. The people have the power. Not even all those celebrities could change that. And while those hurt a lot, many also called out the narcissism of the Obamas. Even as they greeted people during the holidays, they just still managed to talk about and celebrate their own foundation. So they're not celebrating Christmas and they're not celebrating the New Year. They're celebrating their own success and the Obama Presidential Center in Chicago. And while they failed to extend a fourth presidential term, it looks like Trump's second one is already seeing some trouble. Watch this.
All right. And there is some breaking news tonight that a Chinese state-sponsored hacker accessed unclassified documents at the Treasury Department this month. What can you tell us about that hack and how significant is that?
Yeah, I mean, the Treasury Department is saying that this is a pretty big deal. I want to read you exactly what they said just to make sure that we outline exactly what's going on here. Basically, what they said was that as of December 8th, a third-party vendor flagged to them that there was a Chinese-sponsored entity that was able to access what they described as unclassified documents. They said that this threat actor was able to override the service's security, remotely access certain Treasury workstations, and again, access not classified, but unclassified documents. So it seems like there wasn't anything too sensitive that was part of that. But what the Treasury is going to have to do now is report back within 30 days back to Congress to offer a little bit more detail about exactly how this happened and maybe what could be done to prevent it going forward. But the Treasury described this as a pretty serious issue, although I want to point out again, it was unclassified documents, not classified documents that were allegedly compromised as part of this hack earlier this month.
Concerning nonetheless.
Exactly.
I guess I got to ask the really important question here. How many times will they allow China to do this without repercussion? Because it's unnerving for people who have money in the bank. They're supposed to ensure the financial security of our country, which includes national security. And they're telling us that this is a major incident. China, on its end, has denied any involvement, saying that the accusations from the department are baseless and that they oppose all forms of hacking. Well, whatever the case may be, this is another embarrassing fiasco for the Biden-Harris administration, adding to the long list of successful cyber attacks under President Biden. And if this wasn't embarrassing enough, he's getting even more backlash for the last-minute decisions within his term. Now, I covered this in a previous video where President Biden hands out multiple pardons for people on death row. Many families have spoken out feeling betrayed by this decision. Now, we're so close to the golden era of this country under Trump, guys, but there seems to be a problem down the road. Many Democrats are now urging Vice President Kamala Harris to block Trump's path back to the White House. Now, I covered this in a previous live stream where I highlight how they plan to stop him from taking office. Make sure you guys check that one right after this one. But as always, appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much for hitting the like button and subscribing. We'll see you guys next time.